Okay, I am so thrilled to be here. Good to have you. Welcome to the summit. So what I want to share with you is the patterns that I see in my latest book, and it's called Remix. Remix, a few of you may know what this is. If you're into music, you know it. It's when they mix different tracks from different songs and create something new. If you're an artist or know about art, collages are remixes. They take things that have already been shown or published, and they cut and paste them, and they make something new. So this idea is really what's behind a lot of what you do, without necessarily putting that name to it. You might actually put a more complex name to it, which I use also. I call it recombinant strategy. What you're doing is taking pieces from different companies and putting them together into your own. Sometimes you're doing it by acquisition, by merger. Sometimes you're splitting off pieces. And then, of course, when you work with a partner, there are pieces of that DNA that makes it into yours. And it's that combination, it's that mixing of ideas and products and assets that create new value. And this is actually an idea that goes way back to Joseph Schumpeter in the 19th century. He's the guy who invented the idea of creative destruction. Today we call it disruptive technologies. Well, he also said that innovation comes from making new combinations. So anytime we make new combinations, they can be alliances, they can be partnerships, they can be sometimes transactions, we're creating new value. And I boiled it down to 3 laws. So I believe in 3 buckets also. We'll see what those 3 laws are. And what I'd like to do today is to walk you through those 3 laws. For each one of them, there's a little video clip. So you'll see how this plays out in actually the animal world. And then we will sort of wrap up with how you can use this for making more productive alliances. So the first law. Do you need me here to tell you this? Right? Doesn't this roll off your tongue so easily? 1 + 1 is 3. Why do we do alliances? 1 + 1 is 3. It's deceiving. It's not that easy, right? The idea is that we're trying to create synergy, trying to create joint value that isn't there if we just did the things on our own. At the same time, we know that there's a lot hidden in here that is really a lot harder to do than it looks. So it is one of the laws that 1 and 1 has to be 3. If you don't have that, then it's not worth really doing the alliance or the acquisition. And in fact, I would go a little further. It should be 3. It should be 4 or 5. If it's 1 + 1 equals 2.2, it's not enough for all the work involved in doing that alliance or the acquisition. There are transactions costs. There are investments that you have to make in order to make these things work. So next one, law number 2. 1 and 1 is 1. Okay, this is not a contradiction. What I mean by that is not that the value is 1, but that the management is 1. So the first one is a value equation, the second one is a management equation. So basically this is about integration. This is about the idea that if you're going to have 2 different companies working together in whatever form, business combinations, acquisition, alliance, partnership, whatever you want to call it, you gotta have to act like 1 or close to 1. Or at least you might say you have to have effective governance, right? If you don't have that, then the first thing doesn't happen. So the second one really is a precondition to make the first one happen. Right? To the extent that you have a common goal, then each of us might have strategies that may or not be always in sync, or at least in rhythm with the others, but we have this common goal, and to the extent that that is something that ties us because we have the view on this 1 and 1 is 3, on this greater value later on, then that is something that can bring us together. But you get the idea. 1 and 1 has to act like 1 in order for 3 to happen. Okay? So, third law, just to complete the triad here. Okay, 1 and 1 is 1.3 plus 1.7. Or actually it could be 1.5 plus 1.5, or it could be 1.8 plus 1.2. You get the idea, it's got to add up to 3. If you created 3 together, then we have to split the pie. Fairness. Fairness. So do we think then of alliances as being 50-50? I mean, can we translate that, this fairness idea? Fairness is actually, in behavioral economics, an up-and-coming question. People are concerned with fairness, they're concerned with equity, individuals, when you have gift giving to each other, people are concerned when there is unfairness. They're most concerned when they are getting the smaller gift. But they can also sometimes be concerned when they got too big a gift. Maybe that imposes some responsibility or something that's not right. So yeah, we have this bias around wanting fairness. But alliances in the real world or mergers, et cetera, they're not a matter of splitting everything 50-50. But you see that this kind of thing has to be worked out, right? I mean, somehow when the alliance comes to having a return, that's an important part. It has to have a rewarding return for your investment. And so the profit sharing is where that return on investment happens. The 1 + 1 is 3, nothing really happened there. That's a potential. That's a potential for joint value, and we can work towards it, and it gets created. It's not really repatriated yet into our company as a return on profit, or a profit on our investment. The 1 + 1 is 1 basically is the way you make things happen. Now, as part of the 1 + 1 is 1, creating the effective governance, there's this, right? Because my investment is going to be contingent on how much I get back, in some sense. So whether or not I have the resources, the intention to work with the other party, depends a little bit on what my view is on this. And you can think of it as a sliding scale. If your partner gets very little out of it, you can expect that they will give very little effort, and that they will not be that cooperative. And then they get to be not so contributing to the joint value. So this has to be worked out in order to create really the total situation. So let me just put it for you in English. So these are essentially what we talked about in math. So the joint value potential is the combination needs to have that potential. Effective governance, combination is designed and managed. Those are two parts of it. Design it right and managing it right. And in the workshops today, there will be attention to both of those pieces. There'll be a workshop around how do you design deal making, if you will, so that you can get the most consistency and value out of it, and then other workshops on managing the process itself more closely to the alliance management idea, and that also needs to generate value. And then you have to have, of course, rewarding profit share, so the value earned by each of the participants provides the incentive for their investment. So that all you need to remember is these three things, right? So 1, 2, 3, and these are, as you see, not commandments. Like it doesn't tell you exactly how to do it. They are necessary and sufficient conditions. When you have an alliance, you're getting into a situation where you don't quite know exactly what's going to happen 6 months or a year from now. You don't even know exactly what questions to ask. So we have great lawyers here, and the lawyers do their best to put everything into the contract. Yet they realize this, I think, that there are all things that cannot be put into the contract because we don't know them yet. And so what we do then is to create a mechanism for managing those open ends, those gaps. This is not a matter, obviously, that your contracts are technically missing on something like a notarization or a proper reference to a law or something like that, but they are incomplete. They are incomplete. It's a kind of heavy word. I don't know if the lawyers like when I use that word. It's a word we use in economics or in law and economics, that contracts are, when they're complete, they cover everything under the world, and nothing is like that, especially not in these kinds of alliances. So they're incomplete, and when they're incomplete, they have a gap. And when they have a gap, that needs to be managed. Okay? And that's the essence of managing alliances. And everything that we put in to create a proper rhythm or understanding or communication, it is because the contract didn't say it clearly enough. I'm oversimplifying maybe, but it's useful to think about that idea of an incomplete contract when you get into any alliance, and don't expect the lawyers to cover all the bases. So in fact, the deal makers try to do their best, and then the folks living the alliance later on are always complaining. Why didn't they think of that? Why didn't they think of this? Why didn't they put this in there? What are we supposed to do? But the answer is you're supposed to be reinventing that stuff. It's an evolving contract, and having, in a way, a space to continue to create new elements of this working together is ideally what a good contract sets up and what a good agreement is. So that's sort of how I see it, and we will going to have later on a workshop that'll get deeper into the deal-making part. So let me just step back for a moment here. You know, we have a great challenge. This company has been through its own recombinant strategy. Right? Age-old company that has changed itself over the years. At the same time, the industry that we're in is going through dramatic change. When you know something very well, when it's your business and you dominate it, you don't need alliances. For the most part, you do what you do, you own it, you run with it. When something new happens that you don't know well, then you have to find a way to learn that thing, and alliances are commonly now a way to do that. So in your industry, obviously, this is rampant, and I think it's strategic. I think it's no longer a matter of filling gaps. I think that more of us are going to be doing this sort of remix and recombination of assets in order to reach the goals that we have. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.